Yes, the Christian Dvorak trade, one of the more meaningful moves that Marc Bergevin did towards the end of his tenure as GM of the Canadiens. Ever since they lost Jesperi Kotkaniemi to the offer sheet, there has been a bigger and bigger discussion as to what the rest of the center core for the Habs looks like, especially if you go into the long-term future. Christian Dvorak was traded to the Montreal Canadiens from the Arizona Coyotes to try to placate those worries. The Montreal Canadiens used the draft picks, or at least they partly tried to. It was a conditional kind of thing, so not directly, but they tried to use some of the return they got for Kotkaniemi in the compensation to make this trade for Christian Dvorak. Well, those conditions have now been fulfilled, and because of the way the NHL has gone down, as of right now, I'm recording this audio on Saturday, April 16th, 11:12 a.m. It'll probably be uploaded in 2 days, though. We have ourselves the finality of what those conditions were and what it means Arizona is going to get from the Montreal Canadiens. So let's go over to the trade once more and just take a look at the entire Dvorak thing. The Montreal Canadiens acquired Christian Dvorak, a 26-year-old center, 6'1", 201 pounds. He's a left-handed guy who honestly has not had the best season with Montreal this year. He's got 25 points in 49 games as I record this, which is pretty much halfway there at a 41-point pace, which is kind of in the ballpark of what he's done in previous seasons, to be honest, although I think I'd be speaking for most people in the Canadiens fan base when I say that Dvorak has not necessarily been as good as people would have wanted him to be. Either way, though, half a point a game, not terrible, especially getting the deployment that he has been having. I think it would be fair to say that he has had somewhat of a down-ish year, despite the point production being what it is. But either way, the Canadiens acquired this guy in exchange for 2 draft picks getting sent over to the Arizona Coyotes, a 2024 second-round pick which belonged to the Montreal Canadiens, as well as a 2022 first. This was a conditional pick. The conditions were as follows. The better of Montreal or Carolina's 2022 first-round pick will be sent over to Arizona, but if either or both are top 10 picks, then Montreal will instead transfer to Arizona the worse of the first-round picks. Now, better means higher, so the closer you are to 1, the better that number is. The worse the pick is means that it's lower, so the higher the numerical value, 30th is worse than 29th overall or 28th overall. So, pretty much, this would be the better of the two, but if any of the picks were in the top 10, it would be the worst pick sent over to Arizona between Carolina and Montreal. And taking a look at the NHL standings, the Montreal Canadiens are second last in the league. They've got a .68 points percentage in their regular season, and here's the Reddit post that kind of inspired this entire video, with the Red Wings winning tonight's game. Not tonight, but like a few days ago, because this video is being pre-recorded. The Montreal Canadiens are now assured of a top 10 pick. Therefore, the Coyotes will receive Carolina's 2022 first-round pick instead of the Habs. Now, this is not surprising. Ooh, spoiler alert, the Habs are going to get a top 10 pick. Wow, I'm so shocked. No, that's not the case in the slightest. Everybody and their mother knows the Canadiens are bad this season, and they know they're going to end up in the draft in this top 10 selection. However, you gotta remember, when the trade was made, it wasn't necessarily like that. You see, the trade was before the season began. It was September 2021. If you told anybody in September of 2021, hey, see that Canadiens team? Yeah, they're not gonna have Carey Price next season. Or they do now, because he returned. Good to see. They're not going to have Shea Weber next season. They're going to lose out on Tatar and Danault. Kotkaniemi is going to get offer sheeted, which he already did at this point in time. Cole Caulfield is going to have a down year, and Dominic Ducharme is going to be really bad. Would you believe it if I told you back in September of 2021 that the Montreal Canadiens, riding high on the coattails of a Stanley Cup Finals appearance, will finish second last in the NHL? Or they will have one of the second worst records in the league, just barely better than Arizona, and even worse than Seattle and Ottawa and Detroit and the Devils and all that. You wouldn't really believe me if I told you that at the time. And so that's why this entire condition was put in place by Marc Bergevin, just as a security blanket, just in case somebody goes out there and craps the bed. If Montreal has a great season and Carolina also has a great season, then okay. Here's 2 picks that are 16th and maybe 21st overall, and the Canadiens will give up the 16th overall pick to Arizona for this Dvorak trade. But if the Canadiens were really bad, which they happen to be, then it's the worst pick amongst the two that is going to be sent over, which in this case is going to be wildly further down than the Montreal Canadiens. Let's just say, for the sake of sorting it by points percentage, second overall pick. Let's say the Habs get the second overall pick and the Carolina Hurricanes get, I don't know, the 30th overall pick, because that's what Tankathon says right now they're currently in. Obviously, it wasn't intentional, and Marc Bergevin didn't come into this season thinking that the team would be this bad. But that security blanket has just saved the Canadiens in such a big way, because now, all of a sudden, it's second overall versus 30th overall, and that condition makes the Canadiens send over the 30th pick rather than the second. And so, now, with Carolina being as good as they are in the standings, I guess the Canadiens have no real choice but to say, okay, let's go Kotkaniemi, let's go Domi, let's see the Carolina Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup, and so the Arizona Coyotes will get the 32nd overall pick, the worst of the two, because Montreal is pretty much guaranteed to being in the top of the race already. Now, you might say, okay, what took so long? Why is it now confirmed today? Well, because of the way the NHL's current draft lottery system works, you take a look at the bottom 16 teams in the NHL being involved in the lottery process. This is what the Tankathon little thing says about the NHL draft order. All teams missing the playoffs are in the lottery. Teams with the least points get more chances at winning the lottery. The first overall pick, ping pong balls. Second overall pick, ping pong balls. You know the drill. This time around, they're doing 2 lotteries instead of 3, so there isn't a lottery done for third, second, and first, only for second and first. But there was this weird rule that the NHL put in place that teams are only allowed to jump 10 spots. It's kind of an ambiguous rule because according to our understanding, it appears that all the non-playoff teams are still able to be in the lottery, and so if teams 1 to 16 are able to be in the drawing for first and second overall, and teams are only allowed to move up 10 spots, what does that really mean? Does that mean that if Vancouver, who is currently 15th in the Tankathon standings, wins the first overall lottery, they're not going to get the pick because they're 15th, meaning that if they move up to first, they'd be moving up 14 spots? Or would the Canucks move up to 5th overall instead because that's their 10-spot max, and every other team from 5 all the way to 14 would move down 1 spot? Meanwhile, the top 4 teams would remain. It's kind of strange how they're doing it this year because they haven't given out a concrete set of rules, but either way, the Montreal Canadiens getting this win from the Detroit Red Wings the other day puts the Red Wings in a spot where now there is no real possibility for the Canadiens to drop out, go on a run, and overtake teams 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 to fall out of the top 10. And also, that entire conversation as well still is a bit ambiguous because let's say the Canadiens go on a run to end off the year. They finish 9th last overall. Now, it's impossible for them to do that, but just for the sake of argument, let's say they finish with the 9th overall spot standings in the NHL. There is a possibility that teams 11 and teams 15 both jump up into the top 10 because they win the lotteries and Montreal drops down to, let's say, 11th overall because 2 teams overtook them. So, them being as bad as they are guarantees everything with the Dvorak trade. It will be Carolina's first-round pick that the Canadiens received in the Kotkaniemi trade that will be sent over instead. My question is to you, though, this was actually brought up in the Reddit post comment section as well, would you rather have Christian Dvorak and the production profile he has right now, half a point a game, 26-year-old center making $4.45 million a year until the end of the 2025 season, or would you rather have that 31st overall pick from the Carolina Hurricanes that will be sent to Arizona instead? There are some pretty good prospects in this year's crop of players, and the Canadiens are going to get a good one at the top of the draft, but there are enough good players, in my opinion, that make the later picks in the first round also quite valuable. So this conversation gets a lot more interesting when you acknowledge where the Canadiens are, what Dvorak has done with the team, the fit that Dvorak has placed within with this Canadiens lineup, and whether or not you value the future so much that you would rather say, okay, I would rather have a pretty good prospect in the 30th overall position rather than Christian Dvorak in the now, who is already in his prime and who isn't really going to get any better, but he is just kind of what he is already. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as well as on the entire conversation as a whole. Detroit winning, Montreal getting their pick locked in the top 10 with the new lottery format, etc., meaning that the Carolina pick from the Kotkaniemi offer sheet compensation will be sent over to Arizona. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British 99, and bye.